This morning, we continued our series on the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' seminal teaching, the teaching that kind of undergirds everything else. And this teaching, really like all of his others, is based on this idea of sacrificial love. The sacrificial love that God has for us and the sacrificial love that he has called us to have for each other. I remember a long time ago, it was about 10 years ago, I heard an Andy Stanley quote, and it went like this: "Love for God is best demonstrated, illustrated, and authenticated by love for others who are nothing like you and who may not even like you." And I remember the first time I heard that, I really bristled, right? Because I thought, no, love for God is best illustrated and demonstrated and all that stuff by following his commands, right? That's what Scripture says. Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commands. What we often overlook, though, is at the very next verse, he says, my command is this: love one another as I have loved you. Loving others as Jesus has loved us sacrificially is the call for every Christian. And it's the way that we demonstrate not just love for others, but in turn, love for God. And so in the section that we studied today on the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus gives these 6 different ways that we're called to sacrificially love others. And they're different from the way that society usually tells us to interact with each other. And so it's these 6 different teachings, and they all start with, you have heard it said, and then go into, but I tell you. Basically, you've been told that the way you're supposed to interact and live is this way, but I'm telling you that the ways of my kingdom, the ways of sacrificial love, are actually this way. And so the first 5, he walks through things like lust, like hate, like keeping your promises, telling the truth, things like that. And then he gets to this last one, the most radical one. Matthew 5:43 through 47. Here's what he says. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even tax collectors doing that? And if you only greet your own people, what are you doing more than others? Don't even pagans do that? Jesus kind of saves his most radical instruction for last. And he really goes into this idea of, our people and those people. How we're supposed to love and care for and serve our people, but really we don't need to engage with those people. People that don't look like us or think like us or act like us or vote like us or believe like us. Those people are kind of on the margins. We push them away. We embrace our people. Jesus is railing against that. He actually says that love is most often demonstrated, that our faith is actually most often demonstrated, not by how we love our people, but by how we love those people. And obviously, this is something that Jesus demonstrated himself, right? His enemies did terrible things to him, lied about him, arrested him, eventually killed him on a cross. But as he was hanging there, if you remember, instead of hurling insults instead of hurling insults back at those who were hurling insults at him, he actually prays a prayer for them. Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. You see, we don't get to decide who deserves love and who doesn't. Jesus decided that 2,000 years ago on the cross. He decided that each and every person is worth sacrificial love, worth dying for. I want us to see this morning that we look at the people who murdered Jesus on the cross and we say without hesitation, they were his enemies. But Jesus never saw them that way. To Jesus, they were God's children. Maybe like the prodigal son who's turned his back and gone away, but a child nonetheless. And that's his heart for us, to see each and every person we encounter as bearing the image of God and as either our brother or sister in this world. Siblings, children of God. That is our call, to love one another as Jesus has loved us. In a world that is so fractured, that is hurting, that is divided more than any other time I can remember, this love of enemy, love of other, is really what I believe is going to save us. This is what Jesus has in mind for us as Christians. Sacrificial love for all people. I pray that you join me this week in practicing that with those around you.